This video is a demonstration of how to provide feedback using Google Docs. A student may share a Google Doc with their teacher, and they would do this by first clicking on the share icon and then finding their teacher name. All Duff-and-Peel teachers and students are automatically generated when students are using their board account. So for example, if I wanted to find Mr. Middlemiss, I could look for his name and then click and then write him a note and say, "Hi, sir. Can you please provide me with some feedback?" Most likely, students would leave this as editing access, and this is the default to notify people. And then when I click on send, what happens is Mr. Middlemiss receives an email in his board Outlook account notifying him that the student has shared their Google Doc with them. In order for them to receive that email, this needs to be checked off, notify people, and then it would be sent. Mr. Middlemiss would then come into the Google Doc and would be able to come in and see exactly what the student sees. It is really good practice for the student to always copy and paste the learning goal and the success criteria. Teachers should encourage the student to do this because if students are being assessed in a specific task, it's important to remind them of what the criteria is for them to be successful. So this is really fantastic practice. When the teacher comes in, they will most likely be in editing mode, but I would highly recommend switching this to suggesting mode. Because if the teacher is in editing mode, then that means they would be typing directly into a Google Doc and changing the student work. Whereas if they are in a suggesting mode, any changes that the teacher makes would automatically be put in green, and that would notify the student that this was a change that the teacher has made, which then they can accept or reject. Once the assignment is submitted, the teacher can find sentences or section of an assignment and highlight these sentences and click on this icon to add a comment. Here, the teacher can provide descriptive feedback based on the success criteria to help the student get to a further point. For example, if some of the success criteria was to use vivid language to make the writing more interesting, the teacher may find some places in the writing where the student has used vivid descriptors really well and point that out. If the teacher feels that there are moments where the conjunctions could have been stronger, the teacher can also point that out by highlighting the area and adding the comment either through the icon or through right on over here after the sentence or section has been highlighted. What's really great about the suggesting mode is that the teacher can also provide descriptive feedback at the very end. For example, based on growing success, we know great practice is to point out what the student has done well, what are the next steps for improvement, and how they can go about achieving those next steps. So, the teacher might point out good use of vivid language and number of paragraphs to describe how a deer looks. For example, white-tailed, how the horns are different. That's pretty descriptive for the student to be able to hone in on. Their steps for improvement might be consider using conjunctions to further create a natural flow in your writing. And perhaps the next steps would be to review the instructional material and conjunctions to help you implement. Perhaps the teacher has provided some instructions on conjunctions already and wants the student to review how conjunctions are to be used. What the teacher could do is find that handout. Let's say it's a Google Doc all about conjunction. Click on the share icon. Copy the link by pressing copy link, and it gets copied to the clipboard. Go back to the student work, highlight review the instructional material, select the link icon, and press Ctrl V on their keyboard and click on apply. Now when the student comes in, they can actually click on instructional material and be directed to that conjunction handout. A really wonderful strategy so that students are not searching around for information. And then after the teacher makes a comment, the teacher doesn't have to share or resend the information back to the student. Whenever the student comes back to the original document, they will automatically see the teacher comments and the feedback, and they can choose to resolve the comments, accept them, reject them. Then they can make a copy. They can go to File, make a copy of the feedback from the teacher, making a copy is almost like a photocopy of the work, and then they could implement the feedback into their writing when they actually submit the piece of writing, either through Google Classroom, D2L, whatever platform is being used.